All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to use Facebook audience targeting, as in like Facebook ads target audience. What are the differences between different audiences available? And basically, towards the end of it, I'm going to share with you a very, very straightforward but powerful technique to actually target your competitors' customers. You see, when it comes to audience targeting, this is actually one of the most frequently asked questions that I get on my YouTube channel, because everybody seems to have that kind of belief that when you are able to get the so-called the right combination of audience targeting, as in like the interest targeting, the detailed targeting per se, you are actually getting one step closer to the ideal audience that you are getting. That's why I've seen cases where people likes to break their ad sets into multiple, let's say, interests. Like this morning, I was looking at someone that actually targets people who are interested in IKEA, for example, or is it IKEA? And then parents with preschool toddlers. And the other one was like the college students, because they always believe that when we are breaking it into situations like this, we are able to learn better. But you know, the way we understand this is, I'm not saying that this is an entirely a wrong practice per se, but here's what I think. As long as your budget is not very significantly big, as in you're not spending like $50 to $100 per asset, it may not be able to give you meaningful test results. That's the first thing. And in fact, if you are doing this kind of niche audience, the other possibility that you are facing here is you might be having these assets competing among each other. Like, for example, people who are interested in luxury bags, for example, you know, those brands of luxury bags, also might be interested in maybe, you know, the car brands, right? Like Maserati, Ferrari. So these two audiences, when you're actually using two different assets to run your ads and target, you know, basically you might be actually competing among each other. That's why that will push your CPM overall to come up a little bit higher. And in fact, you are actually just paying extra. One of the ad sets is going to be losing out, and you'll be actually paying extra. So this could be some possibility of wasting budget or creating inefficiencies among the campaign. So the rule of thumb is, when you are spending a smaller amount relatively, I would say, if you can, group these audiences, so-called these detailed targetings, into one and let them learn. However, you know, when it comes to detailed targeting per se, there are certain so-called myths that I want to bust as well. Because, you know, just to give you an example, I always like to use this as an example. Like, for example, when you want to get married, for example, let's say you're planning for your wedding, right? Chances are you will be liking a lot of pages, or, you know, visiting a lot of websites about those wedding related. Like, you like photographers, like wedding photographers, wedding planners, and maybe wedding venue so-called providers, and you keep liking all these pages. And then, of course, you get through it and you get married. But the thing is, let me ask you this question personally. Do you individually go to all these pages and unlike them after you got married? You see, you are not. And essentially, if you do not update your interests, theoretically, you still fall under these interests of people who might be liking wedding-related products or, you know, service providers. So you might be kind of like being targeted as well. And on the other hand, the other example that I always like to give is, when it comes to detailed targeting, like, you know, one of my famous example was many years ago, when I was actually still managing campaign for clients. I went to a developer. So this manager was very, you know, confident, and he told me, Jason, my products are very premium. All right. So I want you to help me target people who are interested in Mercedes-Benz, Ferrari, Maserati, Porsche. These are the brands that, you know, we want to talk to these people, because if they like this, they are my ideal customers. They are very likely to buy from us. So when I turned around, I was like asking him another question, just to think of this from another perspective. All due respect, sir. Okay, let's put it this way. I'm not disagreeing with you, but here's the thing. I might be liking the page because I'm interested in luxury cars. Like, I might be liking Porsche per se. I might be watching a lot of videos about Ferrari because I'm into it. But that does not make me a person who is able to afford a car like this. So these are all assumptions that may be, in a way, framed in the wrong way, that causes some misunderstanding, okay, when it comes to audience targeting per se. That's why the reason why we want to bring this up is, I'm not saying that all these interest targetings are entirely wrong, but you want to be very open-minded about it. And one thing I want to tell you is, in fact, in the recent years, Facebook has been advocating about what? Going broad. Because when you go broad per se, let's say if you are very confident that your audience, your product can be very, can be catering to a lot of these segments of audiences, going broad allows the algorithm to actually learn in a more effective way, because you have to always understand. One thing I want to put it here first before I move further. Facebook advertising now is actually intent-based advertising, as in Facebook really know who are the people who are really interested in certain products or services or buying certain things. Or let's say, whether these are the people who are likely to, purchase online, or they rather go to the offline buying, or they rather submit as a lead or talk to you on the messenger level. So these are all the information that Facebook already have on hand, and they are definitely able to help you to find the right audience. But all this requires some testing. So you have to always understand that, running Facebook ads is not just about the audience targeting, but the reason why we are here today, because we want to understand the differences between the audience targeting. So I'm just going to bring this screen up just to go through this with you. Okay, now, so you are actually seeing my screen. So when you are creating a campaign, right, basically you will be seeing this framework. So you have the campaign level and then the ad set level. Now, if you are curious about the differences between objectives, I actually have another training that talks about the Facebook ads objective. You can actually find it on my YouTube channel. It's already there under the free training segment. But today we're not going to go on the ads campaign level. We're going to go straight into the ad set level, because this is where we look at the audiences. Now, when it comes to audiences, this is where we look at. All right. So this is the audiences segment that we are looking at. Maybe I enlarge it a little bit just to make sure that we're actually seeing it in a clearer way. Okay. Now, basically, there are three types of audiences available when it comes to Facebook advertising. Now, the first type of audiences is where you actually start creating let's say, create new audience. These are what we call the detailed targeting or broad targeting audiences, whereby it's defined by a few important elements. First thing first, the location. All right. So when it comes to location, if you click onto it, there are a few things you want to pay attention to. As in, like, first, in fact, the default setting is you're targeting people who are living or recently in this location. That means you are also targeting people who were here, but they left the location, which is they're not here. It could be travelers, it could be expats, it could be, whoever who were here. We do not have very solid information about when, like how recent is recent, but we were actually assuming that within 2 weeks. So if you want to run ads that targets really strictly the locals only, you can actually consider to switch it into people living in this location. So that will only zoom into people who live here. Now, you might be asking, how does Facebook know whether I do live here? Facebook tracks what are the time you spend. Let's say if you spend all the nights at this place, of course, you live here, and you spend all the days at another location, that means you work there. Make sense? So location is actually one of the most powerful targeting options that are very unlikely to go wrong. All right. So having said that, there are many ways to do the audience. When it comes to locations, you can actually go in by points and all that. I believe you already know that. So in my opinion, in fact, when we are actually using the broad targeting, location plays a very important role. So this is one of the options that you can actually consider instead of going into the detailed targeting, going into location. Like, for example, you can drop pin per se. Let's say if you want to go down here, all right, you can actually drop a pin to a very specific location. Let's say here. So when you're dropping a pin, you're able to zoom in up to 1 kilometer. So this is a technique that you can use to say, for example, targeting people who are very specific. Let's say you want to target some factories. You want to target some, I don't know, what else can we target? Like people who are really living there. So you can actually go this kind of detailed targeting. So I let you play around. Now, the next one is the age. All right. Age is one of the, like the basic information that are very accurate as well, that we are actually, that Facebook really know a lot of information about your age, because when we were young, when we were creating our Facebook ad account back then, we always fill in the right information about when we were born, right? And especially those who run ads up to now. In fact, Facebook has your ID verification, and with that, they have a clearer information about your age. So that's that. And gender is also very accurate. So what is confusing a lot of people here is the detailed targeting. So when it comes to detailed targeting, going into whatever it is, right? Let's say we go for Mercedes, right? Let's say we go in there. So if you go to Mercedes, I want you to actually pay attention when you're selecting anything. Take a look at the the box at the right over here, what it says, all right, people who have expressed an interest in or like pages related to Mercedes. Now, the keyword here is expressed an interest in. You know, that includes what? That includes watching a video, visiting a website, liking a page, of course. That's why liking a page is a very, very tricky information, as I shared just now. They could have liked it because they were at that stage, but now they are no longer into this stage because none of us spend time to go back and really update our ad preferences like, oh, I'm no longer in this category. I'm no longer interested in wedding photography. We don't do that, okay? But essentially, this is one of a tricky part when it comes to the detailed targeting. That's why when it comes to detailed targeting, sometimes I just want to make sure that you are not overly obsessed with all this, like, oh, is it Tony Robbins working better or, you know, Franken works better? I do not know. I test it, but it doesn't make sense. I like both of them. So you will be targeting both. So that's the key you have to understand. Sometimes, like I say, it depends on the budget. In fact, going broad is one of a strategy that you can try if you caters to most of the audiences, let's say different age group and all. But if you really need to zoom in and you do not spend a, you know, like a big budget ready for that, you should consider grouping them into one, because a very important mindset I want to share with you over here. You see, we are not here trying to prove which detailed targeting or so-called which interest works better. That's not our job. That's Facebook's job. But what are we trying to do? We are trying to make our campaign work and learn better and, you know, get our results in a more optimum way. We want results. We are not here to test for Facebook and see, I think Mercedes-Benz works better than Mercedes-AMG. What the hell? That's not what we are trying to do. Okay, make sense? So when it comes to detailed targeting, that's something that I want you to pay attention to. And of course, when it comes to audience targeting, it's very important to also look at the estimated audience size. You know, the rule of thumb here is this: you have to understand how big is your population. Let's say, for example, in Malaysia per se, we have about 30 million Facebook users. Now, when it comes to 30 million Facebook users, you can't possibly be targeting everyone, isn't it? So when you are trying to zoom in, then it also depends on the budget that you're having right now. So if your budget is relatively lower, say, for example, you're only spending about like $10 per day. So when you're spending $10 per day, definitely it may not be beneficial to zoom into everyone, as in like you open up to target everyone, like 30 million people. But it will be more beneficial if you can zoom into, let's say, dive into specific detailed targeting or specific location to help you to really get closer to the audience that are more likely to become your customer. So that's my fact. That's what I'm actually arguing about. So this is a broad targeting, or so-called a detailed targeting, or, you know, the created audience per se. That's why we have to strike a balance between, like going too overboard in terms of testing, or at the same time striking a balance of having enough audiences to come in. So this is actually a very important combination that you have to strike a balance about. But in fact, like I said, you know, multiple times, this is the third time I say this, if you're not sure, you can actually consider going broad and allow Facebook to do its job to help you find your best audience. So that's the detailed targeting option. I mean, the audiences that you're creating right now. Then you have other options, which is what we call the custom audience and the lookalike audience. Now, essentially, let me help you understand. You see, like I say, when you're doing Facebook advertising, when you're working on the ads manager, a lot of things are being described there. You got to read it, all right? So what it says under the custom audiences, it says, reach people who have already interacted with your business. So do not come back and ask me, Jason, how do I target my competitors' visitors? It doesn't exist, okay? Unless you have your pixel installed in your competitor's website, which, you know, very unlikely. So these are your own audiences, remember? Audiences that you own. Now, what are these things? Hang on, before we go in, there we have these lookalike audiences, right? So lookalike audiences are essentially new people on meta technologies who are similar to your most valuable audiences. Which means, what are your most valuable audiences? Audiences that you own that are valuable. So the keyword here is, it is actually derived from audiences you already own, which is custom audiences. So that's the reason why we need to start from the custom audience. Now, when it comes to custom audiences, you have to look at, these are the options that you can use to group your audiences. Like first, the website, very straightforward. Okay, people who visited your website. So the prerequisite is you got to have your Facebook pixel or meta pixel installed. So that's the most important thing. And then after that, you can actually go for customer list, which is you're able to kind of like upload your list of email addresses or phone numbers of your customers. And what Meta is going to do is they're going to match it to their database, and they will populate information that matches them. And they do not store them. In fact, they have more info than you anyway. So let's say if you upload 1,000 phone numbers, they might match you, like 600-700 people in the list, that you can actually use that list to do what? Either you can do retargeting to tell them about your latest promotion, or you can actually use that to exclude in case you don't want to reach back to these people anymore. So remember, when it comes to custom audiences, we are using them to do two things. To include, which is to retarget, meaning you want to revisit, let's say, for example, you want to go for people who watch your video up to certain percentage. Okay, if you have been running a video ad, then you can actually group these people up and run ads to them to tell them another information about your product or your services or your promotion. Or you can actually use that to exclude, meaning, let's say you want to make sure that your advertisement are not reaching people who have visited your website before. I mean, so you can actually use the website audiences as exclusion. That's why when you're using this, you have to always bear in mind, when you're creating the audience, you have to understand, am I using this for inclusion, as in retargeting, or am I using it for exclusion, as in, exclusion, of course. So these are all the options available. You can actually play around with it. That's why when it comes to Facebook advertising, a lot of people will fear about, if I do not have a website, can I still implement, like the two-step funnel framework that I use? For those who are not sure about that, you can actually go to my YouTube channel and look for the two-step funnel framework. That's my way of running Facebook ads that has been, like really helping a lot of businesses, advertisers around the world to create a different kind of a Facebook ads campaign that gets them optimum result. And basically, there are many ways to do retargeting right now. That's why it's no longer about just website. Okay, like you can actually use people who interacted with your Facebook profile or Facebook page. Because when they say interaction, that means, like, let's say we go in by Facebook page. Okay, so basically you have these like people who engage with your page. Engage means what? You read this, including people who visited your page, taken an action on a post like liking or whatever, reactions, comments, and clicks on the carousel swipes and all that. So basically that includes your advertisement, isn't it? So if you run ads actively, you can actually use this as exclusion, meaning you want those people who have recently interacted not to see this ad anymore, or you can actually use this to do retargeting even you don't have a website. So that's the key, So yeah, I will leave this to you to play with it. Like, there are multiple things available. Read. Okay, this video serves as a kickstart to help you have a better understanding about, overall, what are these all about? What are the audiences all about? But to use it in a more effective way, you need to start by understanding. Okay, the learning is on you. All right, so once you're done with this, the next thing you can create is actually lookalike audiences. Now, when it comes to lookalike audiences, remember what it says. Audiences that are similar to your most valuable audiences, which means your most valuable custom audiences. So the rule of thumb is you are actually advised, okay? I would recommend that you create lookalike audiences based on a very high value audiences, such as people who bought, people who actually made a purchase on your website, people who actually became your lead at the same time. They also, sign up for your services. These are the people who are of higher quality. You see, remember, when it comes to lookalike, these are essentially broad audiences. There are still other people who have not interacted with your business before. But when you have a set of audiences as a reference, what Facebook is going to do is they're going to check this bunch of, let's say, 1,000 people who bought from you before. They're going to like populate and, check their background and their similarity. They're going to find other people that are likely to do the same as this bunch of people. So the keyword here is rubbish in, rubbish out. So if you use a very, very low quality or custom audience as a start, which is like what? People who watch your video up to 3 seconds. What the hell? I mean, anyone who can watch up to 3 seconds. So these are as good as, meaningless. So basically, it's very important to use the right audience to kickstart as your custom, to create your lookalike audience, right? So when it comes to lookalike audience, selecting a source is important. So you can select it from a custom audience, whereby it could be anything, or you can actually, like select audience from something that, value. But usually we go by without a value because, yeah, these are different applications, you have to understand the differences between it. Here, then people will be kind of confused about like how the number of lookalike audiences, meaning you can select to create up to like 6 lookalike audiences. So when you go for multiple numbers over here, when you click create audience, they will actually create, let's say here you select 6, that means you will have 6 different audiences. They will be like 0 to 1%, 1 to 2%, 2 to 3%, 3 to 4%, and whatnot. So these are actually, to me, it's quite meaningless, but some people likes to use it in a different way. So to me is, if you are new to this, I would say stick to 1, and then you have the option of going by the percentage. So what are the percentage here? This is actually the percentage of, read this carefully. Audience size ranges from 1 to 10% of the combined population of your selected ad set location. Say, for example, you refer back to our example just now, Malaysia has about 30 million Facebook users. So if you do create a lookalike of 1%, then we're going to get an audience of about 300,000. You get what I mean? Yeah. So if you go for 2%, that's about like 600, 700,000, and so on and so forth. The bigger it gets, the more diluted it gets. The smaller it gets, the more condensed and theoretically, the higher quality it is. So you have to understand the differences here. Okay. So this is how you understand the differences between different Facebook, audiences. And then you have to start practicing and, like be a little bit more creative and a little bit more, like open up in terms of like using the combination of it. Remember, different audience types has got their own usage or their own benefits, pros and cons. You have to know how to use it right. Now, having said that, I want to actually come back and talk about one thing that is very important that I promised you. How do we target our competitors' customers? Okay, yeah, like some people would say that, do I actually need to go and select my competitors' keyword? Like, for example, I come in and select Mercedes. Let's say if I'm a BMW reseller, I can come in here and select Mercedes because, people who are likely, they will come to me. In fact, this is totally, not reliable. So how do we actually find our competitors' customers? Now, let me re-emphasize one very important concept right now. Facebook advertising is now intent-based advertising. And Facebook has a very, very solid understanding about what are you looking for right now. So let me give you this example. You definitely have experienced something like this before. Say, for example, you go to a website and you check out iPhone. You go to the product, you browse the description and all that, and you start looking at iPhone, for example. The next thing you see when you come back to Facebook or Instagram is you will see different resellers, iPhone resellers are coming to you. Let's say brand A, so-called reseller A coming to you and say that, our iPhone has this deal. The other guy will come in and say that, buy iPhone from us. And the other guy will be saying the same thing and so on and so forth. This is because Facebook know what are you really looking for. So the key to target your competitors' customers or so-called your competitors' prospects is to actually create an ad that is so simple to understand that the algorithm knows what is this all about, and they would actually send this ad to people who are already browsing the same product or services. Make sense? Make sense? That's why those kind of ad creatives that are fluffy, going in direct ways, trying to tell you that, do you have this problem? And with a long copywriting and all that actually tries to hook people in with, like indirect messaging and all that. These are the things that are no longer working on Facebook advertising, and the audiences has changed. The audience has, totally changed because they no longer want to see something that is indirect. They want to go very straightforward, like, tell me, what are you selling and why should I care? Give the very solid reason and very clear direction to tell what are you selling and what do you want them to do. That also helps the algorithm to understand, and they would then help you send the ad to the right people as they are already browsing with a strong purchase intent to help you convert better. So that's the key. All right. So let me bring this up again. I wanted to actually give you a very important key concept over here. So there you go. I was talking about how to steal from your customers, right? So basically, this is actually a very proven method. It works. I want you to put to test for your campaign and let me know the outcome of it. Now, having said that, come to now, I think we already know that audience plays a very important role, but then again, audience is not the only thing that actually defines the performance of a campaign. Having said, let's say if you already have a very solid product, of course, if you are still uncertain about your product, if you are, let's say, doing drop shipping and all that, That's another factor, because we are assuming that you already have a proven product and or service that is really getting the response from people. So what makes a good Facebook ads campaign? Basically, there are three main pillars that makes it. First, you have to be able to send the right message to the right people to get the right action. So the right message being the creative. It plays a role, definitely, because that's the first thing people see. All right. Even you do all the audience targeting right with the wrong message, people will not be able to relate and take action. That's why, as I said just now, get very straightforward, and be very clear about what you sell in the copywriting and the creative that you are creating. That helps you get the message across in the fastest way. Then you come back to the audience targeting, which is a role to play. Of course, it's quite important. It's a main pillar there, but you also have to start learning to trust Facebook in the sense, because they really know who are the people who are likely to take action or buy your thing. Then, of course, it's about choosing the right objective, because if you say, for example, if you want people to buy on your website and you go for engagement objective, it's not going to work, because Facebook will then send your ad to the wrong people who are likely to take the action that you do not want. So be very clear about the customer journey, about the action that matters to your business. I discussed about this in my training about the objectives. Go over that and take a look. But then again, these are the three main pillars. So basically, it's not whether the questions about whether is it because of the audience, is it the ad? These are the relevant questions to ask, or is it because of some external factors? You see, when it comes to Facebook advertising, you also have to understand, because we're dealing with people, the people behavior shift can be a very important factor to look into, or the seasonal change. Like, for example, if you're actually running ads during the Black Friday, for example, for a fact that this is the time that a lot of people will be coming in and advertise. The CPM is going to come up. The cost is going to be high. So that is one of the reasons why maybe your ad expenses, or so-called your cost per result, is getting higher. That may not be because of the ad. It could be because of the external factors, or maybe it's now holidays. Let's say school holidays. Parents are not in the mood of browsing or buying anything because they are busy taking care of their kids, bringing them to vacations and whatnot. So these are all the factors that will affect, the performance of the campaign. That's why it's very important for us to learn from your existing campaign, to learn the next best step that we can take to get better campaigns. So learning about campaigns is this. That's why this is the thing about, like Facebook advertisers that I work with. I work with thousands of Facebook advertisers since 2010. One of the common so-called trait that I see among a lot of Facebook advertisers is when they have a non-performing campaign, they tend to just keep throwing them away. It must be the audience, let's set up a new one and test. It must be the creative, let's set up a new one and test. But the problem here is they never really learn to actually dive in and find out what's really the factor. That's why, do not run ads based on your gut feeling. Do not advertise based on whatever you feel. Do not let your emotion drive your direction. Okay? Be very rational. Use the number to guide your action moving forward. Is it because of the ad? We look at CTR. Is it because of the seasonal change or whatever? We look at the CPM. We look at all these numbers that are already populated in your campaign metrics or dashboard. Then we actually find the next best action. So basically, I have another training that I talk about metrics. You can actually find it on my YouTube channel as well. But if you want me to look at your current campaign, you see, instead of go and learn and try to figure out yourself, you can actually get me to look at your existing campaign right now or your past campaign to really see what happened. Not just a bad campaign we need to analyze, like a failed campaign. Of course, we need to find out what are the mistakes we made so that we can actually avoid making the same mistake in the future. But if we have a good campaign that's performing, all right, that you're getting a lot of sales through this campaign. Do you know why? What are the factors that contributes to the success of this? You need to learn that. Why? Because otherwise, how do you optimize? How do you actually get better result? Is it possible to spend double the amount and get double the revenue? Or is it, what should we do to make more money from this campaign? That's why if these are the questions that you're asking yourself, you want to really get professional advice on how to actually analyze your campaign and get the action plan for your next steps. Scan this QR code. Basically, this is a Fiverr gig. It will lead you to my Fiverr page where this is a gig where you can buy, you can purchase. Right after that, you will receive a link to schedule a Zoom call with me. So in this Zoom call, we're going to have a one-on-one session over here, and you got to share your screen, of course. Make sure you download Zoom on the desktop, Zoom app per se, right? So that we can actually do the screen sharing and all that. Basically, I'm going to dive into your campaign with you. And then after that, we're going to look at all these metrics and all that. We will come up with a plan about what should we do next to get possibly better result or possibly optimize your campaign further. Okay, then you can take action on your own. Everything will be recorded. You have the recording, and basically this is how it works. All right. So if you want to improve your campaign, scan this QR code, and I'll see you on the site.